Welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 27. I'm Michelle Hawk, and I'm here with my dear Shaman sister, Katherine Bird, and we are joined today by special guest Taylor Carre. Shaman Sister Sessions was born out of Kat and my amazing conversations that we were having on a regular basis about spirituality, shamanism, what it means to do this work in the world and be who we are as healers. And we decided what better way to be of service than to offer these conversations to you. So thank you for joining us here today for this live panel discussion. Taylor, thank you so much for being here today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks so much, Michelle. It's great to be here.
So this is my dear friend, Taylor Carre, and she's out of Vancouver, BC, and she is a trainer of trainers, a teacher of healers, and has an enormous body of work that she's been doing for over 25 years, coming from a very extensive yoga background, then adding in body rolling and body logic from the yamana work, which is very structural, intensive to the bone work, restructuring the physical form, very focused on anatomy and physiology. She's also a Reiki master. She is a melt method instructor. She is a neurokinetic therapy therapist, and has recently been bringing the Voila method into her work.
And Taylor, I'm really curious to hear what are you excited about? How did you get into this work? Please, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing, Michelle. I'll tell you, many years back, I was working more in the corporate world, in the area of sales and marketing, and wanted to sell something that I believed. I was selling natural products, but in my mid-20s, although feeling fairly, on track, it's kind of one of those things where I felt like I had the ladder up against the wrong wall, and I was climbing through this very corporate journey, and I knew something was missing. And I started early on, before yoga was ever popular in the world of yoga, kind of when we were kind of teased about being a little bit pretzelish, but I knew I'd always felt energy, and so I decided I was going to be maybe one of the weird ones and follow this inner while I continued my journey in the corporate world. And the many years that have followed that is I just can't not kind of go to the energy. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that are doing that, and we seem maybe like we're judged a little bit, or people are finding that it's a little bit challenging to follow that path or to find the right people. But lucky for me, in those early days, I found some people who were very in it, on it, maybe hearing things or getting information. And we were just following those kind of callings, as I know that Kat was when she showed up my door. So in my years, I had to do a fairly rigorous yoga practice because I'd been in many car accidents. I really felt in my 20s, if I didn't do something for myself, I would be probably in a wheelchair by the time I was in my 40s. I think a big part of this work is although we're called down one path, we end up keeping on finding our people. And through our people, we're finding the energy, and we're finding the work that we need to both learn within ourselves to heal ourselves from whether they're physical issues, from difficulties or accidents, or just those imaginary, oftentimes we get told you have this imaginary sensitivity. So a lot of my work in my world has been figuring out, making the invisible visible, figuring out what's going on internally, figuring out what's going on in the environment, looking at others, that are following along. Kat, when she came in, she's a few years my junior, but I felt like, hey, if I could just share with her some of the information that I'm finding, it's not so widely published out in the world. And I know that she felt it very helpful in finding her path, as far as feeling like she was maybe a little bit lost and looking for some guidance. So kind of feel like it's like we're the bigger family, the energetic family, and the more information that we can get. If you are feeling a lot of pain in your body, oftentimes it does have to do with structure. And then there comes a time where one needs to go a little bit deeper. And it could be, hey, let's take a look at what's going on in our environment. Let's take a look at what's going on in our food. And then even deeper, what's happening in our lineage previous to that. What are we carrying from our parents or past generations? Or energetically, what's hooked us up from childhood?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, Taylor, that one of the, I don't know if this was heard before. So one of the things that just is so fascinating and amazing about the breadth of your work is that combination of the structural, physical, what's going on in your structure with your bones, with the way that your body was brought in, with what's happened with injuries or illnesses, and then what's happening on that energetic and emotional level. Like, this is something that I don't see with a lot of practitioners, that there seems to be almost this split between us in a lot of ways, where there's sort of the structural body work, physical, chiropractic, osteopath, like we're over here in this camp, and everything is very mind based. It's like, we're gonna figure this out over here. And then the camp of the energy people, who are like, we're gonna wave our hands around, and we're gonna like do some chanting, and we're gonna kind of do this more woo woo stuff over here. But how do you feel that the merge of those two pieces how does that serve the work that you see when you see people come in to work with you?
Well, for me, I'm finding that people come in because they feel like they perhaps have not been seen or heard, or what it is that they're getting energetically is not valued by the more scientific community. Nothing against the science of it. I believe that there's a lot of information that is useful as far as being able to be credible. And the more that the energetic then is combined, I find is really important. And I think the whole breadth and the overview of this is finding both the science, the structure, and the energetic of the person that we're working with, to be able to hear that and to be able to know that these things are there. Like everything, when Kat came and saw me, I was like, I can see in your tissue, I can see in your structure, I can see these pieces. And it wasn't, oh, I can see as in some kind of vision. It really was that we carry our personalities in our tissue. We carry our traumas in our tissue. And to find a way, for me, it was through yoga, through body rolling, through therapeutic hands-on, that I would be able to get to see what was going on for the person. Yeah. Truly, at a deeper level, Kat knew what she needed to do. Sometimes, though, from our experiences in life, we're a little bit too afraid to be able to really, get out of our own way, because we've been taught these various things. And so if we're taught in relationship from our parents, from our teachers, from the doctors, from the people who name call what it is that we're going through, it's really, really tough for young people, children, all of the way up, to be able to break those bonds and say, the whole of me needs to be seen. The whole of me needs to be heard. This is, yes, this is my personality part, and deeper in there, these are the parts of me that need to be helped. Is there somebody listening? And it's not that I ever said, hey, Kat, I can fix you. I said, I can teach you. I can help you listen. We can get to that place where you feel safe, that you can admit or say to yourself, I kind of need to get my bullshit out of my own way to be able to understand, hey, I felt LA wasn't good for me. I felt living in a downtown environment wasn't good for me. And then I was able to show her scientifically, this is how you test to see, is there too much electrical in your environment? Is there something that's going on for you, that you're sleeping in a place where you're getting depleted at night? So I like being able to go in with the scientific, and then it got to the deeper. And Kat and I, we were living far away. We found that we really enjoyed each other's company. We would get together and go on a holiday to some beautiful sacred place on the earth. And then the people, we would find ourselves sitting, at breakfast at a retreat site, we're just kind of hanging out. And all of these people would show up, and there would be like 9 people wanting to sit at our table. And we'd go, what? And then we'd say, oh, well, let's go and let's do our body rolling, because that's what we were into at the time. Kat was learning to be a teacher. And then they say, this one fellow would say, can I come and watch? And so all of these pieces started coming. And then all of a sudden from there, we started finding, Kat was like, well, I kind of have always found this thing that I have this ability. And so her shamanistic ability to be able to call out, we were able to, I think in that day, that was the day, it was a huge exorcism, which wasn't very scientific, which really, we weren't talking to him about, the electrical and the body rolling and the bones. It's like, it really was one of those things where we both felt very grounded and he felt very safe. And we just went, this is what we need to be doing in this little spot by the river. And energetically, he started clearing. Kat continued working with him. He was more close to her in her area. And I think it was kind of that place of being able to come together in community and attract those of us who are meant to be with us. And then we get to share the information that we found together. So reading people or name calling or fixing, it's really one of those things where we need to, I think, just organically pull the pieces together and the people that feel like they're going to help us along the journey.
Wow. It's such a pleasure to chat with you. I mean, I've heard about you from Kat, and I've heard little bits of these stories, and yet now I get to put a face to the name. So I'm so glad you're here today. And Taylor, you're speaking about one of the most important pieces that I feel like we keep coming back to episode after episode is the importance of finding your people and holding them dearly. You know, Kat and I are I feel very lucky and so grateful to have found her as a dear medicine sister on my path. And you know, knowing that you're an extension of that medicine family feels really wonderful. So I know a lot of our viewers, a lot of our clients, a lot of our students are in that journey, somewhere in that journey of how can I find my people? I need my people. I need the people who can reflect back to me, who I can grow with, who I can become more of who I am. And so we've said it once, we'll say it 1,000 times. They are out there. Absolutely. And, you know, just by being who you are and shining that out like you did, right? You know, that people were flocking to you, that the people could feel that vibration.
I've worked with you with some different clients, and you know, then, you know, just like Michelle and I sometimes will chat about our clients and things that are coming up with clients. I know that you've helped me with some people that I've been really, now what do I do? And one thing is that I've seen a lot of people who have had really interesting cases, like the cases of the things that you're like, is that a thing? Is that something that someone has? And I've seen you work on people. You work so, Taylor is so dedicated into her work when she's working with someone. And I've seen you work with people who have things that are, everyone else would just give up on them. Like everyone else is just like, look, this is just how it is. You're going to be in pain. You're going to have this illness. You're going to have this thing, and just take all these medications and good luck. And I've seen you over and over again go, no, actually, why don't we try this different stuff and see what happens? And why don't you start changing your life and changing these things and implementing these things? And so, you know, oftentimes what we see is that people get so afraid by the diagnoses that they get. And so, you know, what do you have to say for the people, as practitioners, when we have people that show up and are like, we're like, okay. And then as the people who have those conditions where they've been sort of stuck in a box by a doctor or a therapist of some kind, and you know, what is the potential that we have to heal ourselves, do you think?
Oh, I think 100%. Because we don't fit into a practitioner's or healer's box, and it goes on both sides. You know, it can be like, well, I went to the scientific doctor and he had these great degrees, or I went to this healer and she said it was a past life, la, 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 and it didn't resonate with me. Don't take on their belief system. Does that make sense? So to me, it's, I have a belief system, and there would be people, oh, well, they were filling in a blank with the name. If I had taken that on, I just know I never would have gotten through. Early on in my life, they said, oh, you have chronic fatigue, you have fibromyalgia, you have these things. I just went, you know, I got kind of for me, I just went, I have kind of an autoimmune thing. That happens to be part of my personality that's in my system. Therefore, I need to address what I can get help with around that. And I started seeking. And so I would really say to people, don't stop seeking. if you find somebody who wants to put you into a box and tell you you're never going to get better again, keep seeking. There are people with really amazing, amazing work. I feel like just tremendous amount of information is being channeled into the planet. I'm a little bit out there on a lot of my stuff because I can say, hey, let's talk about anatomy. Let's name all of the pieces. Let's go through the scientific. And then on the other side, I say, I think some of the deepest work that's coming through right now is people are getting it in their practices, through their dreams, in the various work that they're doing, getting connected, and information is coming through us from the other side. So don't give up, find your people, and know that they're here on the planet.
Yeah. Taylor, you mentioned fibromyalgia, and we actually had a question come in from somebody watching who's asking, would that, and I think that might be referring to the structural work that you're doing, would that help someone with trauma fibromyalgia? So it sounds like yes. Would you like to speak to that?
You got to look a little bit further back. So somebody says, oh, you have fibromyalgia, there's something wrong you're doing now. Typically, it goes back to some trauma that has occurred some time ago. Sometimes it can be from childhood. Sometimes it can be a car accident. And they would say, well, I don't know. What's happened is the nervous system's gone on to overdrive. All your body is trying to do is it's trying to save you. Much of the work that we're doing is like, oh, I have this pain in my hip. It's like all that musculature, if you had perhaps fibromyalgia and you have that specific pain, all that musculature is trying to do, and that nervous system is like save you. And so if what's happening is your body's saving you and the scientific folks are saying, well, we need to give you Lyrica, or we need to give you this painkiller or that, what's happening is then you're layering something on top that is just, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. Just keep on working through this to get to that place where you find people who are able to have a listen. And I can have, I have a listen. It's just like, let's test and let's ask what your body would like. I'm not going to lay my stuff on you as far as, oh, I believe you need this now. We will access what's going on. And the body is very much a safekeeper for all of us. We need to keep ourselves safe. We need to keep ourselves alive. And so as we start asking your body, what is it that you'd like to work on next? They might like to be working on something that just seems really so far away and so indirect from the area that really is going on. What actually is occurring is your body's going to feel safe enough to work on that. And that's the first piece. It's like a combination. It's like we're safe crackers. And so if you're finding your connection with your right people, what they're doing is they're not going to say, I'm going to fix you. I've got the answer for you. I'm going to label this with this name. I'm going to put you in this box. As soon as I do all of these things, can you feel that energy? It's like inside yourself. It's like, actually, I kind of want to save myself from that person that's putting those layers on, instead of, are you safe? Can I just sit beside you? Are we good? Can I hook in my nervous system to your nervous system? And can we figure out where in your system, what emotion has been traumatized, so that we can help you layer by layer, take it apart. And basically the stuff that's saving us is kind of a little bit of bullshit. And I say that in the kindest, most loving way, because we all know, well, I didn't get what I wanted, so I'm going to go and take care of myself and I'm going to do it on my own. That thinking is what we think with our mind, with our ego mind, what it is that we're going to do to save ourselves. But really, when we get out of our way from that and we find a place where we're feeling and believing and we're connecting, and we've got our right people supporting us, that's where we're going to find our stuff.
I haven't seen a lot of fibromyalgia cases that haven't had a significant trauma, and often that have a lineage of trauma that come from a place where, their parents or their whatever is been in a war-torn area or something like that.
Exactly.
Very.
So there can be stories of people, the Holocaust survivors, and then generations later, their grandchildren, great-grandchildren, they're ending up carrying that information. And so to be able to clear from generations back, things that you can't medicate. You can't medicate that away. You can't massage that away. There's just, these are pieces of, it's real. So these parts of me where I say, I've always been a person that would say, let me bridge both sides. Let me see what's going on in the scientific world. Let me go see what's going on in this other realm. And let's take what's going to serve the person or me. Just, I have to own that in myself before I can offer that same information to other people into a way that they can heal themselves through it.
Yeah. Taylor, one thing that that you just briefly touched upon there that Kat and I were talking actually about doing, I think in another episode, but about healing the lineages, right? And so the work that we're doing for ourselves, the healing work that we're doing for ourselves, we're actually going back and we're healing it for all of our ancestors as well. So fibromyalgia, I mean, Kat, I agree. I've seen several fibromyalgia cases where, and actually I think about half of them, you know, in talking about this with them, half of them were not super on board with working with me about it, and that's okay. But, you know, the ones that were, we were able to really delve into, okay, what is the history of the lineage? What is the manifestation of all of that toxicity, like energetic toxicity in the body, causing your nervous system to, Taylor, like you were saying, like nervous system freak out, trying to just, I don't know what it means to be safe in the world. So I'm just in survival mode all the time. Right. And so it sounds as though you have a great deal of experience working with this. To any of our viewers who have further questions, I would absolutely encourage you to reach out to Taylor and we'll give you some information on how to do that at the end of our episode. There was another question that came up actually. I find that when I'm seeking to feel the successfulness in whatever I'm doing, especially surfing between the science and spirituality, I say believe and breathe. I do wonder though, if we breathe, then believe, or believe first, then breathe. Isn't that sort of a chicken and egg thing, honestly?
Yeah, is it the chicken and the egg?
Well, I think it's sometimes we're having to think so much. So that question to me is like, that's like, so do you need to know here? Yeah, we want to know that we're safe with this, but then we need to go into the experience of it. And so much of the information that comes through, it's like we're constantly looking for, is this the truth? Is this the truth? And the pieces of, it's like, sometimes it's the experience. Sometimes it's, we have never had that experience of really feeling truly loved. So when we close our eyes and go, oh, how does it feel to be really truly loved? We don't feel that. And so if one hasn't had it in their lifetime, it's something that we need to seek out to get that information. Each person, and this has been for me, everyone's got something, but nobody's is exactly the same. Follow me? And so when we start doing the layer over, is it the chicken? Is it the egg? Is it the knowing? Is it the breathing? Is it the believing? It's all, without one, it's not the other. Yeah. So if you haven't got all of the pumps working so that you're generating the breath, so that you're generating the thought, or if you're breathing insufficiently, then your thinking is going to be a different level than it will be if you're fully optimized in your body. There's just lots of ways to look at this. And just sometimes there's just far too many words. It's like the chatting that goes on. And for me, that's back to the meditation and back to the practice. You can go back to the practice and you can find that way of having that going inward, getting that connection, balancing the energies, making sure that you're filled within yourself before you start working outside of yourself. That's a really hopeful piece of information for me, because the buck stops here. The buck stops here. And I need to take responsibility and be accountable for what it is that I've come in with. And it's like, it's not my fault. I'm not to blame. But all of these pieces stop here. Then let me work in a clean way with whomever it is that I'm working with. You know, Kat's such a talented practitioner. And so when we work together, it's so much fun. And then we get to work on each other. And we get to say, oh, well, hey, I kind of need this thing, or I need that thing. And so the pieces don't ever really need to be, is this the priority? Is that the priority? It's like, well, you know, my shoulder kind of hurts today. Can you work on that? Or I've got this going on in my emotional system. So all of the pieces, they're all of us. And I know it sounds a little bit airy-fairy or possibly a little bit woo. It's just the more years I'm at this, the more I recognize it's all real. It's all true. There's places that you can get past the BS in a more cut to the chase kind of way. You know, I'm like, yeah, I'm up for this. I'm ready. I've been doing my own practice. I know what it takes to go into the experience. I know how it feels to feel whatever it is. And so you can take yourself to start emanating that positive flow of information. And it's not just, oh, I'm just going to think positive thoughts in order that I'm going to heal my body. There really is a way in that one needs to be able to get to the interior levels, that one can, in a methodical way, might not seem one. It may not seem methodical to your brain, but it really is through your entire body, mind system, and the energy. There are ways to just really get in there and help yourself.
Yeah. Taylor, one thing that you've touched upon a couple of times that I really appreciate and I want to state a little bit more explicitly and explore more explicitly is around what it takes and what sometimes it can take to create the safety in us for us to do that healing work. And the attachment to the story that a lot of us have, right? So somebody has their big bad trauma that they're holding on to, and that's their story of, oh, I had this horrible thing happened to me, and they'll come to see me. I know they'll come to see you and say, this is the thing that I need to work on. And you tune in with their energy, with their body, and you're saying, actually, your body's saying you need to work on this thing that feels completely unrelated, right? And sometimes there can be a little bit getting over but this is my story. This is the thing that needs work on. And it's like, no, everything else is pointing us at this thing. And I mean, I've seen this with plenty of clients and having to really kind of help them drop into, let's be immediate. What's going on for you right now, rather than continuing to perpetuate and play out the story. What's actually in the moment for you? And yeah, it might be a little bit disappointing to the ego, the mental attachment that's like, no, this is the thing. But ultimately, and I mean, it sounds like you've seen this too, but ultimately it is about creating that sense of safety for like, okay, we can work on these other things too, which ultimately help all the work inform each other. I'm curious if you have anything else to say about that, because that feels really important.
I think on one level, it's like the story,
Yeah.
you think of it as being many, many chapters.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm really good at worrying. I'm very good at becoming OCD. And so if that kind of, it's like my samskara, right? If I get into that whole motion where I just do it over and over and over again, what I'm doing is I'm doing a practice of inflating that story, which is not great. But if we, as the whole community, we can say, this is one chapter. We happen to be reading it right now, and so we're amplifying it. And if we look at this and say, well, my chapters of my book, I might have a 24 chapter book. It's just one of the many chapters. So we can get ourselves off of that, amping up the energy into that area.
Yeah.
Sense, yeah. And so it's not that it isn't important, and it's not that it isn't something that we need to address. I have to tell you time and again, oftentimes it will seem like that's the biggest thing, but what we really need to do is we need to focus on something that's a little bit more indirect, yet at the same time, it's kind of direct. Like you're saying, it might be what's happening right here, right now in your life. But it seems like it's indirect to that actual big trauma or the big focus that you want to put on it. But that is really the piece that's going to help you stay in the present, because that's what you need to do to make yourself safe. That trauma that occurred in the past that you keep on replaying, you're just lighting up your nervous system for being unsafe and not feeling well by just keeping on recreating that, stopping yourself from sleeping at night, stopping yourself from your practice, stopping from eating well, all of the pieces that are necessary. And everybody's going to be at a different place. We all need everything. We don't need it in the same doses.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Something I'd like to touch on is, I know you are at heart, you're you embody such the teacher, like you're the, the Hierophant. I think that's why we get along. Like we're just like so connected. Is that that love of giving information and teaching and empowering people. And so I know that you teach a lot of classes and train people and certify people, and in a lot of self-care and taking care of yourself. So can we get really honest about like self-care and what you see with people?
My eyes get really big. Do you know what? I think of Bila. I have these kind of things, Kat's like, you should write a book about that. You have to save yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Don't save yourself first. Basically, I'm going to say right here, you're kind of effed. It's like if you don't save yourself first and you think that you're going out and you're helping people when you're depleted, it doesn't work. You start attracting things that you just this is great. This is such a great learning. I have to say, this is from my own experience, like such a great learning, because you get to see on your outside what it is that you're not dealing with on your inside. So this piece of, oh, I want to be this great teacher. I remember years and years ago writing that back in, one of my things, I really want to be, and I was still working in the business of, I was selling and marketing. And so I was going 24/7 all the time until I had complete burnout. I had to take time out. that was really humbling. It's very humbling when you have to say to somebody, yes, I'm a healer. I'm sorry, I just have to close down for a year now because I just healed myself right into the sick bed. So if that's something that's going on for you, it's always kind of fun to be able to say, and I said this to Kat, please learn from my mistakes. Please, it's so painful to have to go through that on every level, on an emotional level, on saying to people, yeah, and then this happens. Because it's, like everybody wants to be this great success. And what does success mean to you? And how do you attain it? And so for me, it meant working full-time job and managing, again, the teaching thing. I really loved managing and having young sales reps across the country. And then still I was working. And then, so it can be that. And I think also, and hats off to you if you decide to do it the way I did it, as in don't take care of yourself properly, because then you could have something happen like, oh, hey, I'm going to live in a house with unhealthy electricity, and basically I'll ground in my own body for a number of years, the electrical, until finally everything blows. And so when I talk nervous system, I know it from the ground up of when you blow yourself up, it takes a number of years, and you can use tens of thousands of millions of dollars to go to people. And really the buck stops here. You'll find a circle of people. It's usually people who are a little bit underground to be able to help you figure yourself out of your little mess. So I'm not meaning to be condescending because, I've been there, I've done that. Kat's had the experience when she showed up at my door. She was a little bit, she'd been fried by the life of LA. And she knew in her heart, she said, all I want to do is go camping. All I want to do, she called me, she said, okay, I'm coming from LA. Is there a place close to your house that you can camp? I said, no, I live in downtown Vancouver. You can come and camp in my spare room. So that was kind of like right from the start, we knew we had that connect. And so what you need to do is set yourself up so that you get to a place where you're just putting the call out. She just knew she wanted to camp. She wanted to be in nature. When she got to Vancouver, she loved it. It's one of her favorite places. It's one of my favorite places. So just, it comes back to the self-care. It's like someone says, oh, I just have to put this regimen. I have to do all these things because they're the things that I have to do. And it's just, it ends up being not really true. It's like, it's not a hardship once you get yourself out of the negative groove.
Yeah. That's one of the key pieces in developing a daily practice. And Kat, this is something that I know we've talked about like all the time. Again, these themes, if you're watching, make note of what themes come up in almost every episode. The self-care and the personal practice is one of them because it is one of the most important. It's interesting. I was just speaking with somebody the other day about, and actually it came up a couple of times, but speaking with somebody from the personal perspective of there are the times when I feel like, oh, I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the time to go for my run or do whatever the thing is or eat a proper breakfast or, the basic self-care, right? But those are the times when you need it the most. And really, really do the reprogramming, do the training to drop yourself into first shower, first eat and sleep and, do all of those things, do your self-care, and then go do all the other things, right? It's like just reorganizing our priorities. We live in a society that teaches us to have priorities that exist outside of ourselves. We get to reclaim that by reclaiming, I am my number one priority.
As healers, we have this calling to serve and help and to be, help people. We want to help. And, but I think that we're almost the most vulnerable for, getting that hard lesson of what happens when we don't take care of ourselves. And, and we don't take care of our physical body and our emotions and our energy. And, that's why it's one of my greatest passions in the work that I do is just giving people access to what they need to be able to do their work. I think especially because we are being called to, as healers, right? You're saying all of this, all these like downloads of stuff is coming through. It's like we are being called to heal very deep ancestral wounds and for the collective, and to do that kind of work and not to have a self-care practice, and to be constantly looking into what supports me. I went to my acupuncturist yesterday and she did this amazing clearing on me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it supports me so much. And finding your individual pieces that support you.
Definitely. And toolbox. You need to find your people, and you need to set yourself up with a toolbox full of pieces that you can sort through them and go, well, today it's going to be this, and tomorrow it's going to be that. Or it could be in the morning, I like this, in the afternoon, I like that. And then it's going to switch it up. So if you don't have multiple things that you really like helping put into your system, as far as just getting the juices flowing and putting the pieces together, so you can be your ultimate creative, helpful self.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I find that in my practice and my self-care practice is often where I get like the best, you know, downloads and the best, you know, things to bring to the world.
Absolutely. Shannon, man, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I think of when do I actually do the deep healing work on myself, which is not nearly as often as it's embarrassing how rarely I actually go in and do the deep healing work on myself. But when I do, I get the most ridiculous information and downloads and all of the amazing stories that you could not ever possibly hope to make up. New symbols, new knowledge, new stories, new all these things that are just pouring through. So it is worth it. It is worth the time. It is worth the investment in yourself. And just opening up that space and, again, prioritizing number one. Absolutely. Yeah.
So another thing I'd love to touch on with you is assessment.
Okay.
Because one of the things that I experienced with you and working with you and having clients come in the door and getting to see Taylor kind of like be like, okay, stand against that wall. And she's like, okay. And then I know you've been learning just even more assessment tools and techniques. And I know for Michelle, I'm working with you. It's like you're so listening to the higher realms that are giving you so much information. And it's like, Taylor, you have this, like, it's coming through the physical body and the information and assessment of how do we perceive what's going on with people, and the fact that there's so much information, right? There's okay, well, we're physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, etheric, there's past lives, there's this life, there's your parents and their grandparents, and there's the environment you're in. There's so much stuff going on. So, you know, over your years, as you've really mastered this skill of assessing, what have you found has been your pathway through
to making the magic?
Yeah. So like figuring out, okay, now what are we gonna do?
I think it's been interesting for me as I go through the years, and I love taking courses. I love getting information. I think the education that we receive and where we choose to get it from is really important. And what I have found is there's different forms, and there are some forms that are more effective than other. And then once you've kind of perfected for yourself that form, so for me, it was like the form of yoga. And then it was a form of assessment through doing body work and using the balls like Kat does, the yamana work. And what I found is each time I find a form, I take that information into myself and I go, oh, hey, these are the things that are consistent. This is what I see in a person, the conversation, the personality, the touch of the tissue, the information, this body structure, yoga, Ayurvedically speaking, are you tall and thin, shorter, squatter. Sometimes I'll see people, and this is what was making me think about the personal practice. Sometimes when I see people that are carrying a fair amount of excess weight or inflammation, sometimes it's just a safety factor. In order for them to function at such a high level, this would be a way of assessing. Sometimes people need to carry an extra, sometimes 20, sometimes 50, sometimes 100 pounds. They are so sensitive to the energies that are coming in from the world. Or other people, I say, I was sharing with Kat some of the new people that are coming and training with me. Some of them, they look like they're like really bendy, and they could be like kind of like noodle people or Gumby, and they can kind of bend around corners and such. But what's happening is they're super tight at their bones, they're super tight at the core, but it's been a way that they've made to accommodate other people into their lives. So a lot of these pieces I'll take and I'll, Kat was like, so what do you see and how do you see that? And so it could be from my yoga background, it could be from my energy background, it could be from a therapeutics, let's take a look, okay, and then they stapled that shoulder and they pinned and plated you. all of the history means something and it takes its effect in a person. And then finally, I think that what happens past the physical level, when you were kind of looking at the energy field, I was actually thinking about it. Sometimes people come in and I don't see images. You know, I love the people, oh, and then she has red hair and pigtails. And, you know, they have an image of the ghost or the, you know, the emanation from the generation past. I don't get that. I just get kind of a feeling. You know that feeling when kind of like the hair on the back of your neck? I think they used to say that in olden times. The witches would get that kind of feeling. So when that comes in, I think that's, you know, as time goes by, the information is being shared with us. We're getting it. Whether we choose to hear that and using the feeling state, using that kind of higher ability to kind of get the sense of what is it that is coming to us when people get to our door. And then I think for me, my most recent modality that I'm enjoying is I actually then test to then ascertain what is most important. I use a testing technique where I go, what's the highest and best for your body? And we'll check through your chakras and then overlay the emotions. And then we start looking at, is this affecting the structure? So it's just, again, back to that story of that person, of being able to look at the various chapters and be able to say, there's no one thing that's more important than the other. All of it's important. And then going through every piece of it, acknowledge in the structure, there will be emotion. And so my tendency now is to say, like playing a game of cards, you know, ace over king, I would say emotions first and then come to the structure. Because what can be happening is sometimes the structure can be the issue, and I can do a correction on the structure, but it won't hold if we don't deal with that emotion first.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the things also, you know, I went to a ghee making workshop last night, which was loads of fun with this Ayurvedic practitioner. And one of the things that he talked about in Western medicine as opposed to Ayurvedic medicine, and I mean, he wasn't even speaking about energy medicine, but I mean, the same applies, where Ayurveda recognizes 7 stages of illness. And Western medicine doesn't really start viewing it until maybe the 4th or 5th stage of what an Ayurvedic practitioner views as illness. And then, you know, also to look at it from the energy perspective, oh yes, at least 7, if not more. It's like it starts in the energy body, it starts in the emotional body. Eventually, if it goes unchecked or if it goes unseen or unwitnessed or undealt with, it does trickle down to the physical sphere, where then it starts manifesting as all of these other things, which eventually, again, if unmet, unseen, unattended to, will actually manifest in severe structural anomalies, pain, illness, trauma, etc. And so it's, you know, going to who are we at the subtlest level, and how can we attend to ourselves at the subtlest level? So exactly, Taylor, like you were saying, you know, with the emotions first, and then how does that manifest in the structure? And to go even deeper than that, like, okay, what is the energy of the emotion? Like, what's behind that? And I know, you know, never having experienced your work personally, but hearing you speak today, like, I know that that's something that you work on with your people, is like going in at the deepest level. And to our viewers, that's really the most, like, one of the most important components, is like get to the core. Yeah. Taylor, we already talked about the self-care, and I would say that's pretty A1 priority, but what's another thing, or like, what's one thing that you would love to leave our viewers with as a takeaway?
You know, it just, the buck stops here. Super important. If you're, I would just say, when the days are down, when things are tough, just know this is passing through. It's important. Like, magic will win. Magic will overcome. We will heal. And despite being really challenged in the moment, just know it's a great thing. You're moving towards a really great thing. It may not feel light in the moment, but you're just moving to really the right place.
Wonderful.
That's beautiful.
I feel, well, I know both you and I do a lot of work with embodiment practices. And again, this is another one of those running themes that keeps coming up through all our episodes, is ground whatever energies you're doing into the body. You know, ground the, Taylor, you were mentioning the new information, the new downloads that are coming to Earth right now. Got to give it a place to live in the body. And so, and also, you know, by doing that, I think it's really important to address all of the ancestral wounding that we've talked about, all of the archetypal wounding that we've talked about in our last episode, actually, all of the wounding of the lineages, all the wounding of all of these other things that are currently taking up space in our bodies, really. So in order for us to continue to be the clearest vessels possible and to actually ground in this new information, the new energetic signatures, the new karma, it is imperative that we address the state of our containers so that we can create the space necessary to give this new energy a place to live on the earth plane.
100%.
Well said.
Nice.
Yep. Taylor, how can people contact you if they're interested?
DivineBalanceYoga.com.
DivineBalanceYoga.com is Taylor's website. Yes. Thank you.
And I honestly, Taylor's one of the most amazing practitioners I've ever had the opportunity to work with, and I just trust her with my life. So, if you are having something that you feel like you need some support with, and you have the opportunity to work with Taylor, I would highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Katherine. Thank you, Katherine.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor, so much for being here with us today. It is absolutely a pleasure to have you on our show, and I am so looking forward to actually meeting you in person at some point. I cannot wait. And for those of us, or those of you, anyone who would like to reach out to me and Kat, you are totally welcome to do so. You can find us through our Facebook page, Shaman Sister Sessions. You can catch up on past episodes on our YouTube channel, also under Shaman Sister Sessions. And of course, you are always welcome to email us at shamansistersessions@gmail.com. Also, keep a lookout as we are in the process of getting this podcast up on iTunes. So you will be able to follow us a little bit more regularly there. But in the meantime, we are so enjoying doing this weekly live broadcast with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye, Michelle.
Bye. Talk to you later.
No.